Alrighty, so now we're back in terms of doing the moving forward series episode. I know I haven't got a chance to do that because there's been a lot of videos that I've been doing related to the MLS season. But yeah, I'm back in terms of the moving forward series episode, and we're going to talk about Minnesota in terms of today's moving forward series episode. And as I said before, this is probably the most frustrating season as a Loons fan ever since I supported this team coming into the league in 2017, mainly because while I believe that this was kind of the year where they might potentially miss out on the playoffs, the way they miss out on the playoffs is not what I envisioned. That is how it is, and that again, what's even more frustrating about this team is there is a very uncertain future of what the direction is this team gonna head in heading into the offseason, and there's still a lot of question that is clearly not answered even by the front office, or shall I say the new front office that it is being remake heading into this offseason. But in terms of this season, as I mentioned, they miss out on the playoffs with 10, 11, and 13 record, and they finished with 41 points. They scored 46 goals this season while allowing 51 goals with a goal differential of -5. So not only the fact that the goal scoring has been down, but the amount of goals that they've allowed has also gone up, and the same goes for the goal differential. And as mentioned, for the first time since the 2018 season, they finished 11 in the West and also snapping the longest playoff streak that we've seen a team has gone in terms of making the playoffs in the Western Conference. Now, in terms of the head coach for this Minnesota team, obviously they still don't have a permanent head coach because they have named that Sean McCauley will continue as an interim head coach heading into next season, which has frustrated a lot of Loons fan. And then the chief soccer officer, it's not Manny Lagos anymore. It's actually Khalid Al Ahmad. He's going to start his job in December 15, and it's going to be interesting to see what kind of makeover he's going to do. And obviously, as much as I have seen a lot of different teams have made their signing already, I won't be surprised the signings won't start until Khalid Al Ahmad is going to take charge of this team. And this is also where it's kind of a disadvantage of having a chief soccer officer and having your GM start your job a little bit later into the off season, because when you look at the free agency market, there's a lot of good free agents out there, but unfortunately Minnesota can't really sign those guys because they don't really have the front office ready to go. But in terms of the top goal scored, we got Timu Puki finished with 10 goals, followed by Bongakule Longwane with 8 goals, Emmanuel Reynoso with 6 goals, Hassani Dotson with 3 goals, and Mender Garcia rounds up with 3 goals. Top assist leader, also Bongakule Longwane with 5 assists, followed by Reynoso with 5 assists. Then you got Hassani Dotson with 4 assists, Ishmael Tajuri Shwari with 3 assists, and Kervin Arriaga finished the top 5 with 2 assists. Now, looking at the last 5 seasons, again, this team has been very consistent in terms of being a playoff team, besides this year, where they miss out on the playoffs for the first time since 2018, finishing in 11th place with a 10, 11, and 13 record, and finish with 41 points, which is the fewest amount of points that they finished since the second season when they came into the league. Obviously, I know in 2020 they finished with fewer points, but that was because of the COVID short season. But prior to that, in 2022, and really when you look at the last five seasons, you start to see this team started to regress every single season. But last year they did make it to the playoffs in sixth place with 14, 6, and 14 record and finished with 48 points. Before that, they actually finished a place higher in fifth place with 13, 10, and 11, and finished with one more points than they did with 49 points. In the COVID shortened season, they finished in fourth place with 9, 7, and 5 record and finished with 34 points. But to this day, the COVID shortened season is still the most successful season that this team has had. I mean, not only this team made it to the semifinal of the MLS's back tournament, they also made it to the conference final in that same season too. We will not discuss what happened in the Western Conference final, that is, but I'll just say that that is still the most successful season that this team had ever since coming into the league in 2017. And then in 2019, it was the first time they made it to the playoffs, finishing fourth place with 15, 8, and 11 record. And to that season is also still the highest points total that they have got, with 50 points that they racked up in that season. Now, in terms of the average attendance, 19,568, which is right down in the middle of the pack in terms of attendance. Minnesota has never had problems with attendance. I mean, Allianz Field has always been packed. Though I will say that this season there has definitely been more noticeable empty seats inside Allianz Field, especially near the latter part of the season, and it makes sense because I can understand why some of the fan base are starting to fed up with some of the regression that this team has had. But I will also like to say that you cannot question the loyalty that this team has had. This is probably one of the most loyal fan base, and that even though some might say attendance might start to go down because the team is going to get bad, I don't think it's going to be dropped that off by that much. I think the attendance is always going to be good, and that and also going back to when Allianz Field was first built, this was kind of the purpose. They want to build a smaller stadium so that every single game is going to be packed, and that's kind of it is the case throughout this club since they started playing at Allianz Field in 2019. Though again, I will also say that for those that said that the attendance might start to go down, they're not actually 100% saying incorrect, because we also have seen before where teams get new stadium. The first couple of years they got that new stadium smell, but once it's wear off, this is where things could be a bit of a problem. But I will say that, like I said, this is one of the most loyal fan base. This team, the fans will always stick with this team no matter how good or bad things are getting with this team. Now, in terms of MVP for this team, it's not Emmanuel Reynoso. So yeah, I actually did not pick Emmanuel Reynoso for the first time in terms of the MVP, because Reynoso. It's been a weird year for Emmanuel Reynoso, and I mean from the beginning where he basically was a no show for the first couple of months to finally getting himself back to the team. And while he had some great Reynoso moments that we seen before, it was kind of a down year for him. So instead, I'm gonna go with Bankole Longwane as the MVP. I could have easily gone with Timu Pookie too, but Pookie didn't really kind of got hot until near the end of the season. And not to mention, I can't really pick an MVP and the best player of this team if they only start playing for this team coming in to the secondary transfer window. But yeah, it's easily Bongi Longwane. At time he was the centerpiece of this team, especially in the Leeds Cup. I mean, in the Leeds Cup, he was going off. Like he was at a point where he was equaling Lionel Messi in terms of the Golden Boot race in the Leeds Cup, and that I think he's going to have a really bright future with this team. And it also sucks the fact that when he got injured in the middle of August, and once he came back, he kind of didn't look like he was the same, and you wonder maybe is that because of injury's sake. And let's also hope that that's not the beginning of him starting to come back down to earth a lot. Now, in terms of disappointment, there was a lot of players I could have chose as disappointment, but I'm actually gonna pick a player that is not no longer part of this team, but is still considered to be a huge disappointment. It's gotta be Luis Almeria. I mean, Luis Almeria, it's so disappointed that it didn't quite work out, and of course he belongs in the long list of number nine. That it is turns out to be a huge bust for this Minnesota United team. I mean, yeah, before Team Wookie finally ended that curse, this team just always not been able to have a decent number nine ever since Christian Ramirez left the team. And I also will not I will also won't well I will also believe the fact that maybe Christian Ramirez might have left a bit of a curse on this team in terms of the number nine position after they wrongly decided to let him go a couple of years ago, because like I said before Timo Pukki, that number nine position for this team has just been simply cursed. There's just no decent number nine that has come to this team and has been able to be anywhere close to what we see seen Christian Ramirez has done with this team a couple years ago. Now, young player to watch, it's got to be Bongakule Longwane again. I mean, he's 23 years old, so not entirely really young, but he's definitely a guy that is going to be a stud. And that again, I won't be surprised if he's going to have another great season, another breakout season. He's going to generate a lot of interest in Europe. I mean, he's already generated some interest in Europe too, so I won't be surprised if he's going to have another great season and maybe score like 10 or 15 plus goal. Those eyes in those scouts in Europe is going to really look to try to get him service in the future. Now, what went right for this team? So, they were able to keep Reynoso. So that is one of the first thing that went right because there was a lot of uncertainty in the beginning of the season of, well, are they gonna be able to get Reynoso back? Is he going to stay there for Argentina permanently, or are they able to get him back? And there was time where some people believe that it seems like it's a lost cause. It seems like Reynoso is not gonna come back, and that they're just gonna have to move on from them. And I think it's to everybody's surprise that near the middle of May, the news was announced that Reynoso was coming back to Minnesota United. I mean, I don't think anybody expected that to happen, but the fact that they were able to keep Reynoso was huge because again, he's still by far the best player on this team, and even though he's had to face so much adversity throughout his time with this team. The fact that they were able to keep Reynoso is huge for this team because I still believe he's one of the best number 10 in the league. You could easily say that he's the belong on the top 5 list in terms of the best number 10 in the league. And then Timu Puki finally ended the number 9 curse. He finally started to score goals. Now, obviously, in the beginning, it wasn't kind of the case. He kind of struggled in the beginning, but that was kind of expected. I mean, for a guy that is coming into a new league, we see this happen with a lot of players when they come into a new league. They need to have time to figure things out, and eventually, Timu Puki figure things out, and he started to be a lethal full goal scorer. That again, hopefully next season. I know he is starting to age a little bit. He's near the twilight of his career, but I still believe he could be a 10 or 15 plus goal scorer for this team, which is again something that this team been desperately looking for ever since Christian Ramirez left this team. And then of course the unexpected good Leeds Cup run that they had. Again, I did not expect this team to do much in the Leeds Cup run. Like my expectation heading into Leeds Cup is that they can make it to the next round, but they get eliminated in the first part of the knockout round. I will be happy about that. So to my biggest surprise, not only the fact that they didn't just make it to the next round, but actually won a couple of playoff games, including beating the defending MLS Cup champion, that is the Columbus Crew, in a knockout game, and even beating some good Liga MX team in the process. I mean, they beat Toluca, which at that time Toluca was just unstoppable, and the fact that they were able to beat them in a PK shootout, I mean that seems incredible. And yes, eventually they kind of had their Leeds Cup run ended prematurely with a 5-0 drumming of Nashville SC. But keep in mind, Nashville was also having a Cinderella run in the Leeds Cup itself, and eventually they made it all the way to the final. So no shame in terms of losing to a team like that too. But yeah, the fact that they went on that Leeds Cup run and how well things have gone. Very unexpected. Really reminds me of that 2020 playoff run when that was a season where I wasn't expecting them to go too far, and yeah, they made it to the Western Conference Final. And like I said, that's all I'll talk about. What that playoff run was for this team. So what went wrong for this team? Obviously, the midfield and defense regressed badly. I mean, yeah, the as I mentioned earlier, they gave up more goals than we have seen in the past couple of season. The midfield and defense was at times absolutely unwatchable, especially the defense too. I mean, the defense was kind of cheese at time, and this is even when they did get a new defender in Miguel Tapias, who I thought he had a decent year, but unfortunately, I can't say the same with Michael Boxall, who you can start to see maybe father time is catching up to him. And then not to mention in terms of the midfield I mean, they really lost Robin Lod. Robin Lod was so huge to this team, and that I think once he does come back to this team next season, recovering from that torn ACL injury, that will be a huge boost in terms of the midfield. I also like to say that the goalkeeping position regressed badly too. I mean, Dane Sinclair really had a down season. Let's just hope things will be better heading into next year because again he was very inconsistent. There's been times where he has put some great performance, and then there's times where he let some really soft goals in. Goal scoring was still a problem at part of this season, especially in the beginning of the year, which was kind of expected because in the beginning of the year, with no Reynoso being there. Goal scoring was a huge issue with this team. They just don't really have any players on this team that can lead the line, especially when you build a system surround with Reynoso and Reynoso is not there. Yeah, that definitely is a problem. Another collapse in September and October. So as well as things have gone well for Minnesota in the Leeds Cup, you can't say the same thing about September and October. Again, last year it was very similar. Where they had a bit of a collapse in September and October, and they barely just made it to the playoffs. Unfortunately, they did it again, and I even said that they cannot afford to have another collapse like this because they're not in a better position as they were last season to afford to have a collapse and still make it to the playoffs. And that, of course, was turns out to be. Though I will say that they came close in terms of making the playoffs. If they actually showed up in that final game of the season against Sporting KC. And then lastly, the home form was absolutely woeful. Like the fact that they've only won 4 games at Allianz Field is inexcusable, and the fact that I actually watched them play twice at Allianz Field, and both times they were able to win out of those 4 home wins that they have. So in other words, I basically watched them win half of the home games this season. Is also very inexcusable because Allianz Field is supposed to be a fortress. Like Allianz Field has always been a fortress, but this season, man, it's very inexcusable to see them keep losing at home. I mean, while their away form would definitely be good, and I think you could say that this was probably the best away form that they have ever had in their franchise history. That home form was kind of the undoing of them of not making the playoffs. So moving forward, how is this team going to look in the future? So like I said, there's a lot of uncertainty with this team. There's a lot of question mark of how this team is going to look. And the first uncertainty is the fact that they don't have a head coach. So, they mentioned that Sean McCauley is still going to be the interim head coach heading into next year. And that I did take the unpopular approach and say that I'm okay with that because, yes, I know ideally you want to have a head coach. And also, when you look at the head coaching market, there's a lot of decent head coach out there that this team could have easily picked. But at the same time, you also want to make sure you don't choose the wrong candidate because if you choose the wrong candidate, then all of a sudden things could go bad, and then you can have a situation where you see some teams when they're stick with a head coach for a long time, and then they got the hiring wrong, then they start to change a head coach, and then you start to have a head coach carousel in a team, and that's just not a way to build a successful team. There's not really a lot of good teams in MLS that have been repeatedly changing head coach. You need to have some stability. So I can understand why they're taking their time in terms of looking for the right candidate. But still, at the end of the day, I can also understand why fans are not happy because they're already behind the 8 ball compared to other team. They need reinforcement in terms of the midfield, defense, and in the fullbacks. Well, I will say that in terms of the midfield itself, they don't really need as much reinforcements as they needed to be. I mean, once they get Robin Lod back, that's going to be huge to that midfield. Though I can also understand why people are a little bit surprised to see Will Trapp being back there, even though Will Trapp, I think he was at times being very harshly criticized. I know there's been times where he hasn't been good, but he has also put some good performances to a point where I'm not surprised that they decided to bring him back. But still, they need reinforcement in that midfield because it definitely hit a bit of a regression. But the most reinforcement they need is the defense and the fullbacks, especially the fullbacks. I mean, they are really short in that position, and that's going to be one area that they're trying to get. And especially when you look at also the free agency market, as I mentioned before, the biggest free agent out of this market, or at least one of the best and biggest free agent, is Julian Gressel. They could have easily got Julian Gressel off free agency, but obviously I don't think that's gonna happen because, like I said, this front office is behind the 8 ball a little bit because of the new GM not coming until December 15, and this is where we get to the next point is the fact that from what I already heard, it seems like they're willing to wait until the summer to make some of the signings. Now, obviously, there are some benefit and disadvantage of waiting till the summer to make your signing. The benefit is the fact that you get a bigger market in the summer transfer window, and you get maybe a little bit of a cheaper deal in the summer transfer window because that's usually the window where pretty much all of the European team does their business. Some of the biggest transfer always happen in the summer compared to when we see in the winter. But the disadvantage of that is that you don't want to wait until the summer when things are not going well. You don't want to wait. Just kind of stay afloat in the beginning of the season, and then you make your move in the summer and hope that of course will work out. We saw teams that have done that before. Specifically last season, I think NYCFC was trying to do that, and it did not work out for them. I mean, it worked out for them near the end of the season, but it was just a little bit too late. And not to mention, if you make your summer signing and if they take a while to um to get going, that would be probably until August or September when they start. You hope that they start to get going, and you might already be out of contention by then. So again, there are some benefit and disadvantage in terms of making the summer moves, and this is also where it kind of brings that uncertainty and some frustration in terms of the Loons fan base of the fact that this team clearly needs an upgrade, and the front office is not doing it because they're not ready to analyze what they really need to to do to upgrade those position, and they basically they now think there's a lot of question mark in terms of it. Also, speaking of in terms of the off-season signing, one thing I also almost forgot is that Caden Clark is actually going to be joining this team in 2024. So maybe I'll even just go back to say that maybe they don't really need that much reinforcement in the midfield because Caden Clark can also slot into the position. Well, I don't think maybe a regular starter, but maybe you use for depth as well. But obviously, defense and fullbacks is one area that they desperately needed, and we'll see whether this team is going to do so. Again, I won't be surprised they won't start making signing until January and February because of the new front office still trying to come in and see what is something that they need to do heading into this off season. But it's also kind of frustrated the fact that they're behind the eight ball because of that. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at this team, Minnesota United. Let me know in the comments below. What do you think of this team? What do you think went right, went wrong, and most importantly, moving forward, how is this team gonna look heading into next season? But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys hit like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.